Have you heard of the Portkeys LH5P 2? It's 2200 nits of brightness. That's what it looks like. Here's the box that it comes in, like that. And here is the Portkeys monitor. It's solid aluminum or heavy plastics. There's some weight to this. And it takes an MPF battery, the Sony MPF batteries. It's a touch screen, but you also have physical buttons on the top. The side, you have a HDMI in and out, headphone jack. On this side, you have nothing. You just have, looks like a fan. On the bottom, you have a 1/4 mount. There's a USB over there for a remote. Then you have a USB-A that looks like it sends some power, possibly, or it also can update the firmware. Then you have another remote. I think this is external power. And then on the top here, you have different custom buttons. Here's your on-off switch, and I really like that it's a physical button rather than some or a lot of monitors these days. You have to hold a button for 2 seconds and then it shuts off, and then you hold it again, and then sometimes that same button locks the screen like Atomos. I don't really like that design. I like this on off, pretty easy. Here you have a menu select that you can go through the menus if you don't want to use the touch screen. And on the back here, looks like there's some kind of remote. I don't know what that is exactly, but in this video I'm gonna demonstrate some of the advantages of this Portkeys if you have a Panasonic, or I think Sony. This also supports Sony cameras, but I do mostly Panasonic for video, and I've always wanted to have some control features on the monitor connected to my cameras, and I'll show you what I mean. But before I show you that, here's a hard case that this comes in. It's not the best hard case, it's plastic, but it comes with a case that feels really flimsy on the edge here. This opening, I think that's gonna break. Not the best case, but when you open up, it's padded, and then underneath here, they have some of the cables that are included. Not an HDMI cable, but the other cables you'll need to connect this, such as, here's the power cable. That there's the power. I don't know what kind of connection that is, but it's a D-tap. So you can run this on your V-mount batteries. Here's a USB for, I think, firmware updates. And then this is the USB to remote control. And I thought originally, I was playing around with this monitor a while back for my BGH1, Panasonic BGH1, which I have right here. And then I thought that if you connected the remote, this is the remote, the old school remote cable connection. And I thought by doing that, you would have this monitor could control some of the features on the camera, but I was wrong. It's not this remote jack. It's another cable that this comes with, which is here. This is the USB to USB-C cable. And by plugging into the USB-C on the cameras, the great feature about this monitor is that you can, with a touchscreen interface, control the exposure settings on the camera. I had a bit of a trouble putting the monitor in here because it fits, but it's really tight, so I might get a different case for it than keeping it in the one that it came with. Now, this camera I've had for a while. I mostly use this for my documentary interview shoots. I love this camera. The biggest problem, though, is that it doesn't come with an LCD monitor or an EVF. So you need an EVF just to operate this. There was one sort of hack that I tried to do early on when I first got this camera, was that it does connect via Bluetooth. So I was using my phone and then using the Lumix app. I was able to connect via Bluetooth to the camera wirelessly on my phone, and then on the phone you can go through all of the menu settings, all the exposures, even touch to focus you could do on the phone, the app. The problem was I didn't have the consistent sync with it. I would have sync issues every time I shut the camera off and then I did some other stuff, or it was a while in between shoots when I had to relink it. It was a big pain and not really reliable when you're under pressure. So then I thought of getting something like this because I researched Portkeys being the only monitor that has the feature that can connect the remote to the camera and then control basic exposure settings. But here's how it runs. So first I'll pop in a battery. Pop in one of those big batteries. And I'm going to connect via HDMI. I don't know if it'll work. No, it's not going to work with SD. It has SDI, but it's going to do HDMI. So let me get the USB-C in it at the same time. So here's the USB-C. If you were going to use the BGH1 for streaming, you can stream with that USB-C right there. So if you connect the USB-C to another USB-C cable with another USB-C cable connected to your computer, this will become a webcam. I think you might need the Panasonic app, but this can become a webcam and this could stream. This also has a LAN Ethernet. You can also control the camera and do the video feed all through that LAN Ethernet cable. It's a very versatile camera with a lot of quirks, but it's very useful if you do a lot of web content and long form video recordings, and you also want one of the best low light micro four thirds camera. This might be the best as far as micro four thirds go. I think the BGH1 is the best in low light. But that's not what this video is about. I'm going to test this monitor here. So on the bottom, there's the remote where you plug this in. I think you could use pretty much any kind of cable. You don't have to use Portkeys cable, and this isn't very long. So if you wanted a longer length, you could just buy one of these. So it needs to be, what is this, a micro or a mini? So it's a USB mini to USB-C. I think you could find some of those. So you plug that in here. That's connected. And then I got my HDMI to the in. So I'm going to turn on this camera. Hold it for a couple seconds. And I have the 8-18 Panasonic lens. So with the 8-18 Panasonic, you can use autofocus with that. So turn this on, switch that. It's going to turn on. So that's a pretty bright. Do I have it all the way bright? I don't know if I have it all the way bright. Let me see if I could turn the brightness down. Touch this. And I'll bring the brightness of the monitor down so you can see it better on this video. There you go. So I put down, it's only at 34. 2200 nits. That's brighter than an iPhone, right? That's brighter than an iPad. You could easily see this outside, outdoors, in bright sunlight. This doesn't come with a hood, lens hood, but I think this is bright enough to view outdoors. The only thing I haven't tested with this in high temperatures of overheating. I don't know if that's going to be a problem, but there are fans. There's a fan on here that overheating shouldn't be an issue. Okay, so here's how this works. So I'm plugged in now and I see the menu system. And to get to the controls of the camera, I swipe up. And do I swipe up? Yeah, swipe up one more time. And boom, you see right here, the Wi-Fi USB. I'm connected Wi-Fi USB. And it looks like I can also do Zcam, the Blackmagic Cinema camera, Canon. It says you could do Canon, but I don't think it works for Canon. And then Sony and Panasonic. So let's scroll back. But I want to use the Wi-Fi USB mode. So I connect via the Wi-Fi USB mode. And here's what I get. So you can see on the side here, focus, iris, shutter, ISO, white balance. I don't know what CT is. And then here on this side, the shutter speed, gain, menu, and whatever EV stands for. But I don't use this so much as I really only care about the iris, the shutter, and the ISO, because that's what I'm changing a lot or most often. Autofocus, if you just hit this here, focus, And then now you can choose AF or MF. So let me also choose autofocus there. Is that touchscreen enabled? Oh, look at that. That's cool. So on the I just discovered that right now. So here it says an auto. You can't really see it because it's too overexposed. But you hit that, and now you have enabled touchscreen autofocus. So if I want to focus on something, it's a little hard to see with the glare, but I can touch, and you can see the focus moves. All right, that's great. I'm going to disable that. Get out of focus. I can go to iris. Iris is at an f4, but let's bring the iris, let's close it. Right there, I'm just closing the iris down, and then now I'm opening up the iris. It depends on what kind of lens you have, but since I have a Panasonic lens, I can open up the iris. Shutter speed, I can change the shutter speed. Whoops. Shutter speed, I could change the ISO, all of that. And if I want to get into the menu, I can hit this, and it goes to the menu, but I can't actually touch it. I would have to go to the camera, and then that goes through controlling, going through the menus. So that's one limitation, but I hit menu again, it should disappear. So that's pretty cool, right? There's not another monitor that I know of that has that capabilities. So if you have a BGH1, this might also work for the full frame version. I think it might work for the full frame version of the box camera. And you want to have the ability to touch focus and control your exposure settings. You can do this with this Portkeys model. But now let me test some other Panasonic cameras. So I'm going to turn this one off. And I'm going to unplug this. Oh, I'll turn this monitor off too, because I also have two more cameras that I want to test out in this video. But the BGH1 was the main one. That was the one that I wanted to find something like this, and I found it. So that's great. Now, if you have a GH6, here's a GH6 with a 10 to 25 on. It's a big one. And here you have also a full HDMI and USB-C. So I'll put the USB-C in there, HDMI in there, open up the cap. Let's turn this camera on. There you go. It's asking me to connect which one I want to connect to using the USB-C. I want to use tether, so I hit that tether mode. So by doing that, I'm now in, and then I touch, swipe up, and you can see here, I'm into the same categories. Oh, the menu button disappeared on this one, but I can, if I hit focus, I have the same autofocus. I can touch the focus. Yep, touch the focus. That one works. And then I go into my iris. I could change my iris. The response time takes a second, but I can still do it. It also appears that the monitor here with the USB-C is sending some power into the GH6 USB-C port, and I think it's not fully powering the camera because this is just I don't think there's that much power coming out of there. See right there, there's like a plug sign. That means the camera thinks it's plugged into the wall. Now, I tried to take out the battery to see if it was still run, but then I took out the battery and it shut off. So I don't think it's sending the power to run the camera completely at USB-C. You need to have the battery in, but I do think it's sending in some power into the camera so you can have extended run times, battery life, by having a big battery like this and having this set up. If I'm wrong, just correct me. Somebody correct me in the comments. So it works with the GH6. Now I'm going to test one more camera, a new camera that I just bought. And that is the Panasonic S5 Mark II X. Here's the Panasonic S5 Mark II X, and this is the 20 to 60 kit lens, which I like. And the same deal on this side. You have USB-C and HDMI. Plugging that in. Plugging this in. Turning on the monitor. Turning on the camera. And with this one, I think you're going to, yeah, it's going to ask you to do storage or tether. I want to choose tethering. USB, oh, look. It's supplied power from the device. But I think you need to keep the battery in. But it says that it's supplying the power from the USB-C, just like the GH6. So that is true. It is supplying power. So there you go. Just to prove that these all work, hit the touch screen, scroll up three times, or 2 times, 1, 2, and there you go. With the Wi-Fi USB connection, here are all the same on the left side, but I lose the things on the right side. Looks like the BGH1, I had a menu button, but the GH6 and the S52X doesn't have that. But let's just see if the touch autofocus works. So I touch that one, and oh, that's interesting. For this one, when I go to focus, I don't see a touch the focus. Am I able to touch the focus? Nope. With this one, I can't touch the focus. But I can change the, oops, it's just a little too, okay, iris. Yeah, takes a while, but I can change the iris. And ISO, shutter, white balance. But focus, the autofocus touch screen doesn't work for this one. That's interesting. Oh, and the last thing that this monitor can do with all of the cameras is, see that record button? I can start and stop the recording. So if I hit record, it's now recording, and it triggered it from the monitor. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. That's really important. And hit it again to turn it off. Yep. Oh. Looks like there's a little bit of a delay. Turning that off. There you go. Off. I feel a little bit of some heat with the monitor. I think it might get pretty hot, but there you go. The Portkeys LH5P version 2. As I just demonstrated, a very useful monitor with features that you don't see in other monitors. I'll put a link for this below, an Amazon link if you want to buy it. And yeah, if anyone has questions about this monitor, I'm still learning about this, but I really like how it works with all of the Panasonic cameras I own, and it's really bright, 2200 nits.